Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. I'm Hawkgear, one of the creators of the TrackMania RPG Titlepack, and I'll be showing you how to create tracks for this title pack. So the first thing that probably everyone who wants to make tracks will do is actually go to the editor and click on New Map, select a mood like Day Mood, and then they will go into the editor. And once they're in the Custom Objects tab, they will see that all the objects are actually not textured. They are all gray. So this is not what you want to do. You actually want to go back into the main menu, and then in the lower right corner you want to click on Tracks, and then on Moods, and this is where you have a list of all the mods that are supported by the TrackMania Titlepack. So we would just click on the Isla de Muerta mod. You will have some information down here, and then you can choose to download it in the browser or download in-game, and we will just click on download in-game since that is much easier. Okay, then you will have to wait for the download to finish, and I would just skip it here since this will take quite a while. Alright, so once the download has finished, you go back into the main menu, and now you can create a new track. And then you have to select your mod that you want to build the track with. Okay, so now once you're in the editor, you will see that the custom objects are actually textured. Okay, now Okay, now if you go to the custom objects, you will see that they are actually all textured. They all have some kind of texture applied to them, some custom texture. And yeah, you can go ahead and start building. And for those who are not familiar with the editor interface, I would just explain it a bit to you. So these first 5 buttons, you can access them by clicking on F1, F2, F3, F4 and F5. So the first button is for terraforming. You can build stuff like this pool and dirt area, some dirt hills. The second one is for accessing the standard Nadeo objects. This third button is for skinning the standard Nadeo objects. For example, this one or this sign. And the fourth button is for accessing the custom objects. And the fifth button is for accessing the macro blocks. I will explain them later on a bit. So this button is for erasing objects. And this always depends on what kind of objects you have selected. So for example, right now I'm in the Custom Objects tab, and I can only erase custom objects while I'm in this tab. So I click on Erase and I can only erase custom objects. For example, I can't erase these objects. If I want to erase them, I have to go to the standard Nadio objects and click on erase. Alright, so the next two buttons are for undoing and redoing modifications. This next button is for picking up objects from the editor. So, and this is similar to the eraser tool. If you have the standard objects selected, you can only pick up standard objects. And if you're in the custom objects tab, you can only pick up custom objects. I can, for example, pick up this object. Okay, this next button is for copying and pasting objects, and you always have to make a selection first by adding something to this selection. So let's start right here, and what I'm doing right now is holding the left mouse button and going up with the mouse wheel. This way you can make a huge selection pretty fast. So, and then you click on copy selection, and it will copy all that you have selected. Now if you want to make the selection small, you click on minus sign, and click on copy again. And what you will notice, right now I can't actually place these custom objects. That's kind of a bug or whatever. So what you have to do is include a standard Nadio object in your selection. Then click on copy again, and now you can place it. Okay, this next button, I don't even know what it is. I guess it's not that important. And this next button, there you can save your selection as a macro block. Just give it some name. And then you can access it with F5. And right now this feature is a little bit bugged, because if you restart your game, you will actually not be able to place the macro block. So you can only create a macro block for one session, I guess. Alright, and this button is for the free look, for free looking. If you're tired of holding the Alt key. And next one is for using the underground mode. It will actually hide all the standard Nadio objects, and you will only see your custom objects, which is a pretty nice feature if you have a lot of Nadio objects in your map. And it's also very useful for when you have some objects placed underground. So when you just click on underground mode, and you will be able to erase them, for example. Okay, this next button is for plugins. It's pretty useless in my opinion, so I will not go into it. And this one, the most important item in here is the compute shadows. You can compute the shadows of your map. I would recommend to use high I mean, you can use default for when you want to test your shadows on your map, but if you want to release the map, you should always use high. And I would just skip right ahead here. Alright, now you see that the shadows are all computed. And once you make changes to your map, placing new objects, you have to go into the menu again and compute shadows again. Otherwise, people will not be able to play the map. Okay, this next button is for editing the intro, in-game, and end race. The media tracker. With this one you can test your map, and here you can validate the track. Alright, and one thing I have to mention is that you should always use the shortcuts that are available in the editor. So for example, the shortcuts for this one, F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. You can switch pretty easily between these. And then the X for erasing stuff. The undo, you can access it by undo and redo with U and R. And yeah, the picker tool, you can access it with the control key. Yeah, the underground mode with a Y key apparently. And yeah, I guess that's about it. And what I want to do now is to show you some of the custom objects that are available in the editor. And for that I will actually leave the track and load up a new track that was made by Bass. Okay, so this one, this track uses a different mod than the one I showed you. It's a Grande Muraille mod. And yeah, it's kinda... the atmosphere is kinda like a Tomb Raider track with some open places and a cave here. And so let's go into the custom objects that are available. The first custom object folder, there are just Alright, so we are inside the track now, and I should probably mention that this is still a beta track, so it's not completely finished. Actually, we tested like 6 different versions of this track online, so if you want to have a good RPG track, you should probably have it tested at least once to make sure that there are no mistakes in it and stuff like cuts, and yeah. So this track actually uses a different mod from the one I showed you earlier. This is a Grandemorila mod, and the track kinda has a Tomb Raider feel to it. Yeah, it looks kinda like a jungle with some primitive architecture. Yeah, so let's get into the objects, and first I want to show you what you can actually do with them. So let's take, for example, this branch, and you actually have a lot of different options for placing this object. So for example, with the arrow keys you can rotate it in all kinds of different directions. And with the plus and minus keys on the numpad, you can rotate the block horizontally, so it will always move horizontally. If you want to reset the position of the object, you simply have to press the divide symbol on the numpad, and it will go into the original direction. So just click on the divide symbol and it will go back. And yeah, then there's also the tab key, with which you can adjust the vertical position of the object. So just click on the tab key multiple times and the object will move up and down just slightly. And yeah, it's kind of stupid that once you rotate the object, it will not actually move up and down, but like to the side. So the displacement actually moves with the rotation of the object. But yeah, if you have the object in the original position, it will always move up and down. And what I want to show you is which buttons to actually press. This is the add button, the plus button on the numpad. This is the minus button on the numpad for moving the blocks horizontally, like this. And this is the divide button for putting the object in the original position. Alright, so now we are going to take a look at what kind of objects are available in the title pack. So this first folder, this is actually used for terrain objects, but right now we only have one folder in here which has dirt hill objects in it. And you can see, for example, right here, Bass used these dirt hills in this area, for example. And yeah, for example, this one here is a flat piece of dirt hill. Here's a corner piece, and sometimes it's quite difficult to align them. You have to make sure that they are correctly aligned. And for example here, this is a middle piece, a curved middle piece, and this one is a smaller flat piece that you can put into gaps. And yeah, there's some different shaped corners. An inward, that's a corner that is bent inward. And yeah, some smaller bends. Sometimes it's actually easier to place objects if you press the spacebar button instead of clicking the left mouse button, because you tend to move your object a little bit when clicking on the left button. Alright, so the next folder, this is used for rocks. There are two folders in here, which both have the same objects basically, with the same geometry, but with different texturing. So you can see this first object in this folder looks like this, and the first object in this folder looks like that. And yeah, these are, for example, used in this cave to decorate the cave. You can turn this object and place it somewhere here, for example, or here. And yeah, the way this works is you always have one object and then the same object in half the size, and then again half the size of the second one. And this goes for all the objects in this folder. We have 3 pages of rocks available, and for example this rock is also available in half the size and again half the size. And this little number in the corner indicates what size the object is in. So for example 7 is quite big, and 6 is smaller, and 5 is even smaller. Alright, so the next folder, this is used for vegetation. For example, this first one is a tree stump. That's a base for trees. We have that available in 2 different sizes. And the next folder, we have some branches in there. So let's rotate this branch a bit. Oops. And of course you can go completely crazy with this. You can just go ahead and make a fancy tree like this. So the branches are available in a smaller size and then a larger size 6 and 7. And next up we have some leaves. They are pretty easy to place on your tree because they detect the surface of the tree automatically, surface of objects. So yeah, and there are actually different colors available. For example, this is a red leaf, and then we have some yellow leaves. Yeah, and always in different variations. So you can pretty much customize your tree a lot with this. Next up we have some bushes. So yeah, you can build some kind of bushes with this. And these look a bit like vines actually, so you can also put them on trees and stuff. This next folder, it includes, I don't know actually how to call them, I don't know, tendrils or something, again in different sizes. And yeah, they also detect the surface automatically, so you can put them pretty easily on branches or somewhere. This next folder, it includes 3 pages of plants. So there's a lot of plants to choose from. And yeah, they detect the surface automatically. And you can also go crazy, like rotating this in the water. And you can even, for example, decorate the tendrils. So let's have a look at that tree. And yeah, the last folder is, those are the grasses. With a few variations here. Okay, and then in the next folder we have some driving additions. So these are all objects that connect to each other. For example, we have here some pipes. For example, they are used here in the beginning of the track. And yeah, you can connect, let me remove this one. So you have some straight piece and then you put some curve in here. And there's some bends, a bend upward, a split, and all kinds of stuff in here. Like here's a freewheeling. Oops. There you go. And stuff like a booster. And of course you can rotate the booster, for example, all kinds of directions. Actually, you shouldn't put objects multiple times on each other. This will produce flickering. Yeah, and then there are some destroyed tubes. Broken wall. Here's an entrance for the tube. And here's a connection from a small tube to a big tube. So you can go into the next folder, and here we have the big tubes. And the objects are basically all the same, just in different size. And in the next folder we have some tubes with water and some rims. And this folder includes just the same objects, just with the text, with the water, without the rims. And the physics is actually different for these two folders. So the objects with just the water, they have snow physics and are a bit harder to drive on. And the ones with rims, they have metal physics applied to them. Alright, and this folder is used for water, for coloring the water tubes. For example, here it says a yellow, and this one is red. Yeah, and the last folder, you have some tubes in here, pipes, and they actually connect to the pipes from the standard NetDeo pipes. They have the same size and the same texture. So there are also some curves available, and of course you can do stuff like rotate the curve. Yeah, the next folder, this is used for platform blocks. Right now there are only 2 folders available, but we will add a whole lot of other objects later on. So yeah, these are just basic platform blocks. For example, a flat box, some bigger box. Yeah, some curves, bigger curves, and bigger curves, and wall rides. Yeah, some small turbo pieces and a freewheeling. Okay, I'm back. I actually had to reload the map because I seem to be having some issues with my recording software. So I will have to stop the recording every few minutes to check if it was actually recording. Alright, where did we leave off? Alright. So these platform objects, they're actually the same like these, only with a water material applied to them. And again, just like the tubes, these ones with the rims, they have the metal physics applied to them. And this water, without the rims, it has no physics applied. And what you can actually use these water objects for is like build a waterfall, which looks pretty cool. I think there's another one here. So these are actually the curved pieces and then some straight ones. Yeah, and so the next folder, This one actually is not included in the title pack, these two next folders, but I left them in anyway because I just want to show that it's actually possible to have some objects in the menu, in the editor, even if they are not included in the title pack. So just make sure that in case you have any of these objects in the editor, do not place them in the track, or otherwise people will not be able to open your track. And yeah, you can get these items, you can put items in your local item folder, and that's how they show up here. You can also go into your local items folder and just remove them if you want to. And the way you can recognize these RPG Titlepack objects by this number here in the corner. All the Titlepack objects have this number in the corner, and for example here they don't have any icon at all. For example, these last objects, they are not included in the title pack either, and you can see that they don't have any icon number there at the top. And this object is actually just for me personally. I use this personally to measure the object length. So this is not included in the title pack. Okay, next up we have some wooden logs. This folder is used for decoration stuff. We will add some other stuff there in the next updates. And for example, this wooden log, it's used on this wooden bridge for the fence. For example here, for the fence. And again, we have different sizes for this object. For example, this one, and then one that is half the size. There's one with a sharp tip. This one has a flat one. This one is a little bit bent, and this one is a little bit bent and has a sharp tip. And so these next are some metal rods. They are used in this map, for example, here to hide the entrance to this tube. So if you want to, you can, for example, hide this entrance as well. And yeah, once again, there are different sizes available, and some with different tips. The ending is different. For example, this one looks like an arrow. And here are some ones that are already assembled. There are three metal rods in one object. And you can do stuff like rotate them around. Yeah, stuff like that. And this next folder, it is you can find some frames in here. There are actually a lot of folders included here, and each folder actually has the same objects The only thing that is different are the textures. So for example, in this first folder we have this texture, and then in the next folder there's a different texture, and yet another texture, and some ornamental texture. This always you can always change these, and they are different for every mod, so they can be modified. And these last four folders, they are for just simple colors. So it's not actually a texture, it's just a simple color. So just a white one, a blue one. And what you can do is, for example, if you take this one, and then you can put the same object, you can place it several times on top of each other. So for example, now I placed it like 7 times. And you can see that the transparency changed. So this one is very transparent, and this one is almost not transparent at all. And well, I would recommend not to use this feature too often, because if you just place this object once, you will see at the top corner here the copper count. It will go up by just 1. Yep. And if you place it several times, it will go up by like 4 or 5 coppers. Okay, and then you have the same object available in different sizes, in size 6, 5 and 4. And then there are different variations available, like here with a hole in it. And then you have some corner pieces here where you can make some fancy windows. And again, this is not too easy to align properly. So yeah, and that's about it. I can show you how these windows are used in this track. For example, here it is used for the broken window, it is used for an entrance. And here the window is used for an actual window. And another window is used here for this building. Okay, the next folder, we have some letters here with which you can do fun stuff like writing your name. And of course you can also use it for some driving surfaces. Of course you can drive on it. You can do some tricks with this, like driving up the A. You can use the A as a ramp. And yeah, once again you have these objects available in different sizes. Scale of 8, 7, 6, 5. The objects A to M, and then the objects N to Z once again, and then you have some numbers 0 to 9, 0 to 8, and if you want the 9 you can just rotate the 6, and then question mark and exclamation mark, and once again in different sizes. Yeah, the next 5 folders. Actually, I will stop right now and check if the video actually recorded. Alright, I'm back, and so I left off with these, explaining these 5 folders, and what they actually include are some basic geometric shapes. For example, these bent boxes, some boxes, yeah, some hexagons, octagons, cylinders, some pyramids and prisms, and these objects. I will explain them later a bit. And so, yeah, these basic shapes, they are kind of the opposite of these, yeah, for example, these rocks and these plants. So these rocks and plants, they are what you will call some natural objects, and these basic shapes you can mainly create human-made objects, because they can most of the human-made objects, they can be broken down into these simple shapes and assembled with them. So for example, a house can be made with a few boxes and a few prisms. And yeah, so let's, for example, take a look at Google, see if we can find some image here. I just search for a castle. So let's take a look at this image, for example. You can see, for example, this tower. It is made up of some cylinder, then a cylinder in different width, and then again same cylinder like here, and then some cone at the top. We can see some cones in different sizes. For example, here this water well has some really small cone, and again a small cylinder. And yeah, basically the wall is made up of boxes. And yeah, you can see, for example, the roof. It is made up of some prism-like shape. And here we see the roof. It has a pyramidal shape. So let's take a look at the editor. Take a look at the objects again. I will go through them one by one. So this first folder includes some boxes that have a bend in them. So for example, we have here some bend, and then it is included in different sizes, actually a lot of different sizes. And then we have the same object basically just in different height, and again in different sizes. And the same goes for all these other objects. This one, for example, the next one has a different width. This one is even more width. Yeah. And for example, these objects, they have 2 bends. Like this one has 1 bend, this one has 2. And then again you have objects with different height. And basically the same object. This is basically the same object, just with different texturing. So the way that most objects are made, most of these basic shapes are made, is that they have one ground texture, one texture for the wall, and one texture for the bottom, which is actually the same right here. And you can see, for example, here the texture, the same surface here has a different texture here. So it is sometimes quite useful to use one of these 2 different objects if you want to build. If you want to have this surface on the ground, you use this object, and if you want to have this surface vertically, then you just use this one. And so here are some more boxes with a hole in them. This one has a rectangular hole. Here's some circle hole. Yeah, and then again some variations of that. Actually, what I haven't mentioned yet is if you put objects on top of each other, then they will produce flickering. So you will always want to avoid that. If you absolutely have to put them on top of each other, then you can avoid this flickering by just using the tab key and then slightly having a different height. Then you will not see any flickering. Alright, so I got kind of sidetracked there. There are some more objects here that are basically the same. And then the next folder, it includes some boxes that don't have any bend. And they always have the same size, always the same proportions, so you can actually, it's actually pretty easy to assemble them. So for example, this object right here has the same length as the previous one. And yeah, if you go along these folders, you will see a lot of different boxes. For example, this first folder has this object, and then yeah, it changes the length of the object. It always increases in length until you have like this square piece. And here again you have the basically almost the same object, just in a different height. It has the same length and width, but a different height, and it increases again in the length. And yeah, at some point you have like this height, and then at the end you have like such a block. And sometimes you might notice that they're actually, again, objects of the same proportions. So, for example, this object and this object, they have the same proportions, but the texturing is differently applied. So here is the ground texture is applied, and here you can see that the wall texture is applied. Usually the object should be placed like this. This should be on the ground and this in the air. Alright. And at the end you have some more box objects that where the sides have different length, so it looks like a parallelogram. And again, you have different height versions available, some different length. Yeah. And at the end you have some boxes with rounded corners. Which are sometimes pretty nice to have in your map. Alright, so let's go to the next folder. This folder includes, first of all, some hexagons. Again, you have these available in different heights. So, for example, this one is a pretty huge one. And then you have some octagons. Here are some octagons with some different corner. Here are some octagons with a hole in them. And then we come to the cones. These are actually available with a cap on them and no cap, just a flat top. And yeah, once again, you have this available in different sizes. And here's also a cone available with the hole in it. And yeah, next up we have some cylinders. These cylinders here have a top and bottom that is rounded off. And yeah, then here are some cylinders that are turned 90 degrees to the side. And the texturing is actually different. So if we just use this one, then it would have this texture on it, and these ones actually obviously have some different texture on it. Alright, and then here you can find some cylinders with a hole in them, so they look like a tube. And here are some really See how here's some ones with a really small height, and this one's actually really fun to rotate. Kind of looks like a globe. And then we come to the header objects. And they kind of increase in complexity. So this header is actually then looks like a cube. And then it kind of starts getting weirder. Here it actually gets some spike. This one looks kind of like a star. Yeah, you get all kinds of crazy shapes. And at the end we have some spears. In 4 different types of texturing. Yeah. So, alright, the next folder we have some pyramids. You can actually, this one is a really flat pyramid, but on the next one you can see that it's obviously a pyramid. And for example, this one has the biggest height that is available. This right here is also a pyramid, but a pyramid that is very condensed. So it's the same like this pyramid, but just condensed in length. So where do we have this one? This would be the equivalent to this pyramid, just condensed. Okay, and the next up we have some prisms. Once again, they increase in height until you get something like this. And these are just turned sideways, 90 degree. Once again, they increase, well, this time not in height, but if you look at it like this is the height. It increases like this, as you can see. And then we have some prisms that have a 90 degree bend. In all kinds of different variations. And then some of these same types of with a 90 degree bend, but that are actually on the ground. So for example, we have this one. You know, if you rotate this one, it would actually be almost the same, but the texturing is different. So here are some more of these prisms, but they are not, they are a little bit condensed in the length. here we have some corner pieces for the prisms. Let's choose a different one. For example, this one. So this one is bent inward. And this one is bent outward. And the corresponding the middle piece is actually, you can find it here. Once again, it's hard to connect. Yeah. So there's always a middle piece and then two corner pieces. Yeah, the next folder you can find some objects that you can rotate horizontally to make the shape a little bit bigger. For example, this one you can rotate to make an octagon. And once again, you have different heights available. And with this one you can make a cylinder. But of course you don't have to, you can also just leave it like this. Or do some other stuff like turning it just... well, it doesn't look good. Yeah, we have some of these. Wait a sec. With which look like a ring. And then some for assembling a tube. So with these ones you can actually make some gates and some arcs. And you can rotate them vertically if you want to. Then they look like this. Yeah, and for example, here's a different version available. Something like this. And one that is really long. Okay, and here we have some spears. Like this one is half a spear. This one is, well, also half a spear. No, actually 1/4 of a spear that is actually just cut off. This is like the bottom of this spear. And some spears that you can rotate. You can also rotate it like this. And yeah, these objects you actually have to use the plus and minus keys on your numpad. So you can do something like this. The same goes for like these. They're actually cones. You can build some nice architecture with that, like for building temples. And yeah, here are some spears that I cut in, I think it's 1/16 pieces. Yeah, and here you have some octagons. And that was about it. Okay, and on the next pages you can see that basically the same 5 folders appear in different colors. And actually right now only the orange and the blue objects are included in the title pack. And in the next update we will also include the green, these pink, lila, violet and yellow objects in the title pack. We just have to wait for Nadeo to remove the objects limitation. Right now we can only include 3000 objects and we already reached that limit. And so yeah, if you look at, for example, this block, you can find it on the next page again in the blue variations right here. Oops. Guess I took this one. Yep, and in the green variation they're actually just half the size of these objects, so the size 8 is removed due to a technical limitation. The textures are actually not that high quality. And yeah, the texture is always different. This one is different. And then we have another one here. You can also see at the bottom they all have different textures. Okay, let me just save the map for now. And what we will do right now is leave the track, and then I will show you how to actually check the track if the track has a working mod locator, which is really important because you want other people to see the mod, so that the mod will actually automatically download. So what you will have to do is download gbx dump. Then you will go to, then we'll see the Mania Planet forum post, and down here you will see a download link. And just open this the zip file, and then depending on whether you have a 32-bit computer, just install that, or 64-bit, install that. Just click on next. And what this does is actually, you go into Mania Planet and then your maps folder, I saved the track here. It will add an entry in the context menu. Just click on that and you will see the information down here for the mod. So it has the Random Arrival mod applied, and you can see that it has a URL which points to this. You can actually check if this URL is working if you are not sure. Just copy what this is doing. Just copy that one and paste it in here, and it is downloading. Alright, so this is good. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to change the mod. So you actually have to hold the control key, then while holding the control key you click on the map, and then you click on edit, and it's important to keep on holding control, otherwise you will not get this selection here. So just choose your mood, and then I will just choose the mod that we downloaded earlier, and it will load. Alright, I will just let it compute the shadows for now, and I'll be back soon. Okay, so we can see that all the shadows are computed, and that the Isla de Muerta mod is applied to this track. And every time you change the mod, actually you wanna, by now we would just save the track. And every time you change the mod, you will want to check if the locator actually worked, because sometimes it tends to be a bug when the URL is not added to the GPX file. But in this case we see here that the Isla de Muerta mod is applied and that the URL points to the Isla de Muerta mod. So everything is working. Okay, one other thing I would like to show, is that some people actually have problems controlling the custom objects because they use keyboard shortcuts on the numpad. And if you use a laptop computer, you will sometimes not have these available. So for example, some people don't have the plus sign on their laptop or the divide symbol. And one solution that I figured some people could use is to use a programmable mouse. You can actually get these pretty cheap these days. Just costs like €40. I paid €40 for this one, for example, and it has 9 programmable buttons. And let me just activate the profile number 2, and for example in this one I use this key right there for the tab, so to move the object vertically, and then I use this key for rotating the object horizontally, and this key I use for undoing changes. The 7, I use this one for accessing the custom objects tab, and this one for accessing the normal Nadeo blocks tab, and this one I use for resetting the object's position. So with that profile applied, I'll just go in the editor, and now I can use my mouse. Let me just select a different object. For example, now I'm using this button to change the vertical position, and then I use the next button to move it horizontally, and this button to undo changes. And I can also switch between custom objects and Nadeo objects pretty fast. So yeah, this is a great setup for people who have issues with a laptop computer, and also just people with a desktop computer. I actually like using this a lot. You actually don't have to hunt for the keys on your keyboard. Okay, so with that being done, I will now try to actually build some of this castle in this track. And since this will take, I guess, quite a while, I will just skip forward now. Alright, I'm back, and so as you can see I built part of this castle, and I actually didn't have time to build the whole castle because it's already pretty late. It's actually pretty early in the morning and I haven't slept yet. So the only thing I actually built is this bridge in the beginning and part of the outer wall and this tower. So yeah, the tower I actually constructed by taking a cylinder, and then the top, the cylinder is from the blue variation, and the roof of the tower is made up of a cone, and I took this from the the orange variation. Okay, the wall just consists of boxes basically. This box and then a box from the green variation. And then the roof of this wall consists of some prism from the yellow variation. At the bottom I added a few dirt hills And this one is a smaller tower, just has a different size. This one is size 6 and this one is size 7. And then I took a few boxes from the violet variation and used this for the gate. I took like this metal rod for the ropes with which you can pull the gate up, and yeah, I used some prism for this roof, and I added some of these arcs in there. And that's about it. And yeah, building this whole castle would take quite a while, I guess. So I would just skip that here. Now what I actually want to experiment a bit in here with the macro blocks to show what is possible with them. So what I actually do right now is select these trees and then I try to copy them. Which doesn't really work, so we have to add some ideal block in here to make it work. Just copy that again, and this time it works. And yeah, this is kind of a bad example because we added a lot of other stuff in here. I guess if you want to create macro blocks, you should have like a separate place where you build your tree. You know, just put some tree stump and then add some branches and then leaves, and then just create the macro block from this place, and then you can put it anywhere without some other objects being added as well. So what else can we copy here? For example, we can copy this building here. Don't really know if this will actually work. So we could remove all the stuff around here. Oops. And then it would look like a house that's standing on the water. Just have to add a bit more of these tree logs. And maybe move these tree stumps a bit down. We could also add a branch to the stump. there we go. Okay, I will just save the map here. And then one last thing I would like to show you is the different versions of this track. I actually have a lot of different versions here that Bass made. So let's have a look here. You can see the track is pretty small right here. In the second version, just about 1 minute long. And the way he built this track is kinda to build a route, but he also already added a bit of scenery. You know, for example, he added a path through this house. So he kind of incorporates the route in the actual design, like the architecture of the track and the landscape. So that is one way to build tracks, I guess. And one other way to build tracks, I guess, is to just first build all the scenery, like this castle, and then try to build your track inside of it. And it always depends if which way is actually better. I mean, both could actually work. And yeah, there's actually one other approach to track building. I guess it is just to first just build the route, and then later on you just add the scenery and landscape. So that's one other way to do it. So for example, Bass could have just made really a simple path with just the driving blocks here. Yeah, not even add a house, just like a simple route. And yeah, and then later on add the scenery. But then it might not have worked with this whole house construction. You know, if you have this path and then sometimes it's hard to actually build some scenery when you already have a route that is fixed. So yeah, so let's have a look at some at the 6th version. So this is where the track is already has already progressed a bit. It's a few minutes longer, and there's quite a lot more route to it, and he just kept on adding a route and just incorporating the scenery and landscape in it. As you can see here, you can drive. Here you have parts where you drive through some houses. You drive over a bridge, which is pretty epic. Yeah, and then in this version he then added some cave design. He started filling in all the holes. So the first thing that that was done is to change the mood from day mood to sunrise, and then you can see that the sun actually shines into this cave, which gives this really great lighting here. And so we also added a few more lights, I guess, in this version, because once you start filling, start adding caves and you know, parts of your track where the parts are really cut off from the sunlight, you have to make sure that the track is not too dark, because that is not nice to drive. So yeah, and yeah, the track is still in beta, so I guess he will keep on adding stuff. Like here, this still looks pretty empty. Alright, so that's it. I don't really have anything to add about track building right now. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Hope you learned quite a bit of stuff about the Titlepack and track building. And if you do have any questions left, you can always go to the RPG forum and the RPG Titlepack section, and then under this there are different sticky posts here, and if you have questions about track building, you can go into this thread and then just make a new post. And if you have questions about modding, there are also posts for that, general help and objects. Yeah, so yeah, hope you enjoyed this video tutorial and have a great day. Bye.